Joining us now is West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Happy to be with you, Amanda.
As we are about at the midway point of the legislative session, what is your top takeaway?
Couple things. We think that there are a lot of good initiatives that are moving through. I'm encouraged. We're getting good feedback that people want to cut taxes and return more money back to the people. And an across-the-board income tax cut will do that. We've been very, very clear that we think we could do a 10% across-the-board tax cut. 5%, we did all the heavy lifting. The other 5%, I know we've been collaborating, talking with different legislators about how we can make that happen. So we're excited about that. With the surplus in place, we have to prioritize sending money back to the people. That's the first initiative. Second, we're doing a lot on the education front. A strong education system is the cornerstone of economic success. And so we've been working and investing in public education and also having full implementation of the Hope Scholarship. On the public school side, we have a terrific program that we're hopeful the legislature will pass. It's called a Letters Program, and it's designed to facilitate students' ability to read, improving reading comprehension. This has worked very, very well in many other states, and there's some real interest in that. We're also trying to add to the amount of tutoring that occurs here in West Virginia because we think that could help with educational attainment. So we feel very good about a lot of our education bills, including Hope Scholarship, as it moves to full implementation and gives more choice to kids and to families. So it's not one size fits all. So education's a big piece that we think we can get out of this session. And then, of course, we want to continue focusing on workforce development. There are a number of bills out there that we've been driving which invest in our people, ensuring that people are getting the education they need at technical colleges and four-year schools, and that there are jobs that are available, electricians, plumbers, contractors. And so we're working collaboratively with the legislature on that, and also ensuring that when people have those jobs, they can get credentialing to demonstrate to employers that they're really expert in their fields. If we pass those three things, that's going to be very, very positive. We have a number of other bills as well, but I think we're working collaboratively with the legislature, a lot of positive things, and I've got my fingers crossed, and we're going to be pushing really hard for different ways to address affordability and for getting the high-paying jobs that West Virginians deserve.
You had a little bit of criticism from people who say you came to the public with a 10% tax cut, yet you only built 5% into the budget. Why not go to lawmakers with the full 10% cut where you see those cuts can be made?
Yeah, so I've worked collaboratively with the legislature on a lot of issues, and I've brought a lot of things to them in the past. And sometimes some people have difficulty in terms of reining and spending. I want to work together with them so that's a process. I have great respect for the legislature. I hope you keep that sector in terms of this quote. I want to work with them. Why should we be opposed to working together? That's what the voters expect, that you'd collaborate with them. We have a lot of good ideas as to how we can get the remaining 5%. And so I'm eager to work with them, and so we can join together and announce it together. That's how we're going to make progress. We have to ultimately agree, the legislature and the governor. So I've done a lot of the heavy lifting, but I'm eager to work with them on finishing the job. And that's a very reasonable thing, to be able to work together with people on hard decisions so that we can develop consensus. That's what we need to do to pass it, and that's what this is meant for.
Do you know where you want that other 5% to come from? And if so, why not?
We're having good discussions with members of the legislature on that so we could reach some agreement. But I know we can make more progress. We have to make sure we're restraining our appetite to spend. That's certainly important. And there's some offsets that I have had conversations with the legislature on. But a lot of this is about building consensus. And so if you just put something out there that everyone shoots at, that's actually not going to be effective. You want to bring everyone in the room. And we've been having really good discussions with a lot of key people. So that's why I think we can obtain this kind of progress. But we want to do this with them. They're the elected representatives of the people. I want to show them great respect to be able to work in a collaborative manner to make it happen. And then we all stand together And I think that's what West Virginians want.
Can you pinpoint specifically, though, where the Morrisey administration is saying to lawmakers, hey, this is where we think this other 5% can come from?
Well, we're having those discussions now, and we'll be happy to come back as we are developing the consensus on that. But I know there are a lot of different ways we can get offsets and save more money, but I'd like to negotiate that out with them as opposed to ensuring that you throw something out, it gets shot at. I want to develop consensus on it before we have some of these interest groups come out and attack all of our ideas.
Okay. When it comes to the education system, I made this comment yesterday, so I want to give you an opportunity to respond to it. When you talk about collaboration, obviously there is a lot going on within the education system right now. Who should call the meeting to bring every stakeholder to the table to get everybody on the same page to say this is a kumbaya moment? Obviously, we have an issue with funding for our schools based on the school aid formula that's been around for decades, and it's been a problem, one lawmaker said, for upwards of 30 years. Who should call that meeting to get everyone at the table?
Well, listen, I know I'm very eager to bring people together, and I had mentioned yesterday I was disappointed that when people had talked about all this massive need for monies, that people didn't even try to put it into the budget that we had put together. And that was unfortunate, right?
What are you talking about specifically?
I think we can do better and we can look out for our kids and families. That's ultimately what this system's all about. You have to put the kids first. And so I'm eager, I'm willing to talk to anyone and work with them. A lot of people in West Virginia don't always appreciate that the governor is not in charge of the Board of Education. I get to put my picks in, but just yesterday I had my first pick. So these are 9-year terms. And so a lot of times, you know, these are people that come in, a lot of good people, but they can be there a really long time. I'd love to work with the school board, with the legislature, and to find ways to solve these problems and to make sure that we're looking out for West Virginia's future. We're doing this in a fiscally responsible manner. Amanda, I would point out that in terms of school spending, we're kind of in the middle of the pack nationally in terms of spending per pupil, over $16,000. When you factor that in, you realize it's not just spending that's the problem. We need better accountability. We have 9 to 10 districts and counties that are getting taken over, have really big problems. We need to make improvement on that and not get to the point where you have all these takeovers. That's going to require a lot of sit down. I was pleased to see some of the education leaders at our press conference yesterday as we announced our new pick for the school board. I think he's going to help as well, and we can all try to collaborate on this issue.
When you just said, I want to drill down what you said there were people who didn't put something in the budget that was related to education. To what are you referring to there?
Yeah, so every year we put a budget together. The governor is required to submit a budget to the legislature. And so we go to every single state agency and we ask, what are the budgetary needs that you may have within your area? And when we don't get the $224 million figure or what the education needs that doesn't come from that, it's really hard to plan when you're not getting that information in advance. What I'm saying is that there can be even more communication, and I'll put things on me too. I'm happy to reach out and talk to more people and to communicate, but when we put a budget together and we ask and people don't respond with the dollars that are needed, that puts us in a really difficult position. And then it means, okay, well, if you want to spend money, you have to then reallocate it from other places. And I think the more we're communicating up front, the better. And I'll try to keep communicating as much as I can with all these folks to emphasize the importance of ensuring that when we learn of problems, we're sharing them more broadly. When
you talk about the $224 million, is that the money that's needed for federally mandated special education programs?
Well, yeah, I don't think that the 224 is all federally mandated. I know that's an amount that's put out, but obviously that number was not submitted to our budget. And that's important, right? So when you put a budget together, and we've had $270 million of increases in the public school side over the last 5 years. So I'm looking forward to seeing those numbers. And we know some of it. What we saw is there was base building from COVID, these one-time dollars that came in that were put into the baseline, knowing that the money's going to run out. but people need to be thoughtful in planning about how they're spending the money so we're not left with these big financial cliffs when you got the COVID money in, because you got to factor that in. So I want to work with the counties, I want to work with the state school board to make sure that there's more accountability and more efficiency that's brought to bear. I don't think it's a money issue. I think it's how we can improve our efficiency.
All right, so when it comes to improving those efficiencies, is there anything that you laid out in the state of the state that you think can help improve those efficiencies?
Well, I think there are a lot of things that we're talking about which will help education. So, for example, we have a couple initiatives this year which we think should be a priority in the schools. We all want to improve educational attainment for our kids. So that's why we've introduced a program called Letters, which is designed to improve reading comprehension. That's actually important. And the more money we're focusing on the kids and our teachers and helping them out, that makes a difference. That Letters program has been wildly successful in Mississippi, moving them from at the bottom of the rankings into the top 10. And also we found that through work in other states, tutoring can be very, very helpful as well. So we're asking the legislature to focus in on the things that are really going to move the needle for our kids. And of course, the other piece of that is helping ensure that our teachers and our state workers get a pay raise. And so I've also put money into the budget to give a 3% pay raise. And I think it's important. We've done a lot of the heavy lifting and the hard work, and I hope the legislature is going to be able to move that forward.
When you talk about the programs, which obviously anything to help our children improve reading skills and comprehension, and also any extra help is obviously incredibly important. It doesn't get to the bigger problem, though, which is community schools closing, a dwindling enrollment, and money that, in some cases they're looking at cutting janitors in some counties because they're trying to figure out how to piece all this together. So while those programs are very important, what do you think needs to be done and to fix the funding issue for the schools?
Yeah, so a couple things. First, the most important thing we need to do is we have to be laser focused on economic development and improving net migration, population into our state. All of the problems that are coming up, if you're going to have a shrinking population, the math is not going to add up, right? And that's part of what's happening. West Virginia population has been declining. The birth rate is low. It's happening across the country. We need to get more people to move into our state. We need to have more kids stay in our state. And long term, that is the answer to the question. Now, there are short-term issues, as you point out, that we have to address, but we have to make the right decisions long term to make sure that economically we're much stronger than all the states that we touch so that we can attract more people to move to West Virginia. That's why I'm so forceful pushing for an across-the-board income tax cut. That's why I think that the Hope Scholarship is very good. It's going to be very attractive to have more families come and move to our state. That's why we're looking on investing in infrastructure to try to improve the job situation here, because we have to grow. And that has to be our focus, laser focus at that. So I'm working on solving both the longer-term challenges facing our state and also the short-term issues. These are really difficult decisions, and they were put off for a long time. But you have to make progress on the longer-term pieces of growing the population, growing the economy. That is the answer to the question, as opposed to being in a mode of declining population and closures.
Sure. So when it comes to some of the funding formulas, that the changes that have been proposed by some lawmakers, is there any one of those that you can get behind at this point?
Well, we're going to obviously see what comes through the process. We're having conversations with them, and we want to make sure that whatever we do is looking out for the kids and is focused on how do we improve educational attainment at that level, helping our teachers, helping our kids. And that's the framework I'm looking at. And so I'm open to different ideas. I want to sit and I want to work with them. And I know that they're going through some discussions now. I've been engaging with our legislators across the board on a number of issues, and I know that we're talking about a lot of these ideas. So I'm going to keep talking with them and then watch as the process goes by so that we can hopefully get something really good for our citizens.
You've made some infrastructure announcements this week, and you have said before on this program, they're not the big catchy headline things, but those are the things that are laying the groundwork, no pun intended, for economic development. What else are you seeing that is a positive step towards economic development to achieve some of the goals you just mentioned this session?
It really is. I mean, I think when you focus on the fundamentals and you talk about water and sewer, I've challenged my team to come up with as many ways that we can help ensure that we have the right type of water and sewer projects all across West Virginia. And I know that we were able to transform some of the projects that the way they used to do in the past to put more into water and sewer. And I think that that's important. We're going to have more announcements coming up in the upcoming days based upon the decisions that we made. And also based on collaboration with the legislature. A lot of this wouldn't be possible without giving the executive the discretion to be able to put the dollars into the fundamentals. That's what's going to help West Virginia grow, being very focused on how do you address affordability, how do you look at different ways to bring new jobs in, and the best way is to make sure that we're addressing problems with the roads and the bridges, that we have the right sites that are ready, shovel ready for people to come in. We have affordable energy, and we have water and sewer. And you're seeing a lot of those announcements designed to help position West Virginia well.
All right. I know I need to let you go. Is there anything else that you'd like to add or that I might have missed?
Nope. I think we're good.
Thank you, sir.
so much.
Appreciate your time.
Yep, be well.